She was barely 18 and preparing to leave for college. For the first time ever, she would be leaving her life on the Pueblo in New Mexico. Somebody asked her, "What will you be missing the most?" And without hesitation, she described one particular ceremony. The entire tribe sets out into the mountain together. The men on horseback with the supplies in front, and the old women setting the pace from behind on foot. She described how at the beginning they would find that pace, and all along the way there was the singing and the crying of the grandmothers, wailing as the group made its way one step at a time up the mountain together. No one spoke the entire time. They would all walk together in silence, and there was just the crying of the grandmothers. She pointed out that the quivering of the leaves above us was what the cries of the grandmothers sounded like, and it would stir something inside the people. It stirred something inside of us, too. Thinking of those grandmothers weeping as they made their way, their grief setting the pace for the whole community. For us imagining it, we felt this deep, solid grief open up in us that each of us knew to be real and good, even if we didn't know exactly what it was. For each, it was a glimpse at one of the great truths of love. That there's something about the capacity to love that is as connected to grief as it is to joy. There is something about the capacity to love that is as connected to grief as it is to joy. The CSC, 3 Catholic students in just this past 4 months, all in their undergraduate years, 2 of them just 20, and one reached the ripe old age of 22. Each of their deaths was violent, all sudden. What can we tell their parents and their friends this Easter? Tell me. What are we to tell their moms and their dads? Many would say we should tell them that Easter promises that they will see their son or daughter again, and they would not be wrong. Others would say we should tell them to hope for new life that will come out of this, and they would not be wrong. Perhaps others would say that we should tell them to focus on the community around them, and that too belongs to this feast. Perhaps yet some others may say that we should tell them that Christ undergoes the crisis with them, and that Christ is alive, and that Christ will come to their assistance, and that too would merit our assent. But because of this author of this gospel, this Easter, what I think I would most want to tell them before anything else would be none of those things, really. I would tell them to let their sadness have its way with them. Do not be afraid of the depth of your tears. That's what this Easter story tells. That it is our willingness to grieve that makes the experience of resurrection possible. It is our willingness to grieve that makes the experience of resurrection possible for us. On this planet, psychic numbing has been raised to high art. This people avoids pain and misery in others as well as in themselves at all cost, and let me tell you, that cost is rising. This is not a people who braves grief in the face and stares it down. No, this people dedicates itself to the elimination of pain, its own, and the aversion of pain, everyone else's. But grief comes. Nevertheless, grief comes. Tears fall despite the fact that we resist them strongly. Weeping and wailing is heard everywhere in this land of milk and honey. Truth is, people are sadder than they seem. It was St. John Vianney who wrote those words. People are sadder than they seem. I see it in our students as well, who oftentimes carry a tremendous sadness. If you look around you, my friends, and pay attention to those walking past you every day, to those sitting across the table from you every day, it won't be long till you see it yourself. As one South African author wrote it, everyone we know sits beside a pool of tears. This Easter Gospel tells of the women going to the tomb weeping. So much ink has been spilled on why women were the first witnesses to the resurrection. Where were the men? What happened to the men? While the men had dispersed in fear, or perhaps just got lost in their minds, trying too hard to make sense of it all, to figure it all out. So many of us go here rather than here. What the women knew to do was to let themselves cry. To let themselves cry. Listen now to the description of one of those women who made her way to the tomb. Her name was Mary of Magdala, making her way as the dawn was just breaking, making her way just like the grandmothers made their way up the mountain to the tomb of this friend she had loved so much. And she was weeping. She was weeping. Mary, the supposed gardener, says to her, Mary, why are you weeping? Tell me about your tears. The depth of our sadness becomes the depth of our love. Their willingness to grieve helped them emerge into a radical love. Indeed, their tears carried them like a great river to a new place, a new realization. Different from before, but not worse. Their tears carried them to resurrection. Indeed, as the Master himself said in an earlier day, blessed are you who weep now. Blessed are you who mourn. Mind you, letting myself grieve, letting sadness have its way with me when it's time, does not come natural to me. Perhaps my early understanding of what it meant to be a man somehow meant that I should figure it out or fix it, and the quicker the better. Or perhaps it had something to do with my fear, like what I hear many of us say, our fear that if we let ourselves feel this sadness, we may never not be sad again. All I can say is that it has taken a great courage, more than I ever knew I had, actually, to let myself be sad when it's time. I don't know if you've ever heard of Pandora, but one of the stations on Pandora says music to listen to when you need to cry. I'm so not good at it that I chose that channel, and when I find myself resisting, I put it on. And I can honestly say that I've never wailed in my tears like those grandmothers did, but I have moaned. My, how I have moaned. The journey of tears that is part of every human life is why those who will be baptized in just a few minutes here at the Catholic Student Center literally will go down into the water, into that water. They will be immersed in the water as if into the tears of things. As if to say, only when we go through tears, only when we let ourselves feel life's sadness, will we become just that capable of love. Tonight, each of those three, in a sense, drowns in their own tears and in the tears of the world. And they emerge rejoicing. Like Mary and the others whose weeping turned into a radical love. The bottom line is this. Refusing the depth of our tears, our unwillingness to go there, can keep us from this new thing love is up to in the universe. It can keep us from this radical love. We do not need to be afraid of our sadness when it comes. Because to get from here to here, from the head to the heart, to let ourselves grieve the losses of our lives, can take us to a new place, a place of intense love and a life force set loose, and end up opening our hearts rather than closing it in bitterness. Easter asked the question, when was the last time you had a good cry? A church that does not teach us how to cry is not worth the salt of our tears. Some come to church to cry, our students tell me, because somehow they know that this is the place where their tears are welcome. I have to say I cry more in these four walls than anywhere on this earth ever in my life. Most often because I'm so moved by the faith and the hope and the love I see here in you, but also because of the depth of your suffering, the suffering you carry. Your grief touches me mightily. Your tears open me to my own and to the tears of all. I got to say, at this point in my life, I am utterly convinced that some night while I was sleeping, somebody snuck into my room and attached my bladder to my eyes. How did this happen?